Good morning. Before I get into my presentation, why is social value important to me? Okay, I have to declare an interest. As a proud son of Staffordshire, the lives of people in Staffordshire and the prosperity of the county are important to me. Most of my family live in Staffordshire. The children in my family go to school in Staffordshire, and when they leave education, I want there to be the prospect of jobs or a career for them, and I believe that I'm in a uniquely privileged position to help bring that about. Okay, before I get onto procurement in Staffordshire, the County Council is a leading voice for change within local government. It's all about commissioning for better outcomes for the people of Staffordshire. We've established very recently a joint venture company called Entrust to provide a whole range of services to schools and with the prospect of creating jobs within the county. And to touch on what the Minister said earlier, those people that say, oh, social value will only add cost into the equation, that's not true. You know, we've made significant savings and secured the lowest council tax for a county council in the UK. So that patently is not the case that it adds to cost. That's what we spend every year. That's over £500 million. That has to make a difference in Staffordshire's economy. I can't even imagine what 540 million looks like. So we've got to use that procurement power. I have a team of over 50 people who I absolutely insist share my passion for doing the right thing by the people of Staffordshire. If you don't share my passion, go somewhere else. Go and stack shelves, go and do something. But you need to share that passion. We're divided into people and place, and my head of categories for place, Adrian Griffith. You put your hand up, Adrian. Is there in the audience if you want to grab him at some stage. Yes, it's about savings, but we take a holistic view. We could make savings, wreck the economy. That's not a very sustainable future, is it? So it's about making sure there's a sustainable future as well as savings. It's outcomes focused, as I've already said. And we work closely with our commissioners to achieve these mixed economies. So I'll knock down another misconception that we will only deal with big companies. We will deal with the right people to provide the right services or products, whether you're a sole trader or an international conglomerate. As the biggest employer in the county, as the biggest spender in the county, we need to show clear, decisive leadership. The actions we take today impact on the next generation and the next generation after that. Our priorities as a council for the next 5 years: prosperity, family and community. Local prosperity is a key outcome. Every time I talk to my council leader, he's not asking me about how many compliant EU processes have you run this week, Ian? He's not interested in that. It's about what are you doing to create local economic prosperity. That's the quote from the policy document, that Staffordshire's economy prospers and grows together with the jobs, skills, qualifications and aspirations to support it. So I don't think there's any equivocation there. My steer is quite clear. Right, what we did, we took perhaps the unusual step of consulting with SMEs in the voluntary sector. We gave them our tender pack and our processes and said, right, okay, warts and all, tell us what you think. Boy, was that uncomfortable. Very complex, surprisingly. I know that will shock you to death. Local authority with complex processes, really? You don't say. Time-consuming. Lots of information to provide. A lot of it totally irrelevant. I have one of my many mantras, which I know I bore my team to death with. What we're very good at in local authorities is valuing what we measure, when actually we should be measuring what we value. The flying carrot. Let me introduce you to my friend, the flying carrot. When I took over in 2008, one of the things I found was that we were requiring the same level of insurance from the guy who delivered carrots and potatoes and cabbages to schools as the people who constructed buildings and highways for us. Now, I know a flying carrot can cause untold damage, but come on. There it is. More feedback. The sector is relatively inexperienced in tendering. It's not like I've been talking to somebody I just met, James from Amy. You know, Amy will have bid teams. They'll have teams who do nothing but put in tenders all the time. If you're an SME or a voluntary sector organisation, you probably haven't got a bid team. You need more advanced warning of opportunities. So what happens normally is you suddenly see it in the paper or on the website and you think, better get that tender in, and you've got very little time to do it. Because of all the information that we wanted, very often you were really up against it. And this is a new one, which Adrian and I are starting to address. The feedback, when you are unsuccessful, focuses on all the negatives. You didn't do this, you didn't do that, you didn't provide that, you didn't demonstrate this. Instead of focus on the positives. We like this bit of your bid, that bit of your bid, the other bit of your bid. Make it a more positive experience. And, again, we're just starting to do this, they need training in what good looks like. Now, we know, but why would we keep it a secret? So what we're going to do is we're going to start training people, providers in, right, when we ask this question, this is what a good reply would look like. These are the sort of things we're looking for. And I think that will not only help the providers, it'll help us because we'll get more meaningful, focused tenders back. So, what are we doing in Staffordshire? One of the first things I did when I took over was I put our tender documents on a diet. If I tell you that the tender pack itself was over 200 pages thick, if you fell off it, you'd do yourself a mischief. It had got stuff in there like, you must provide 3 years annual report and accounts. Absolutely fine. What if you're a new start? And when I asked the buyers, okay, you get your 3 years report and accounts, what do you do with them? We file them. You don't do anything with them. Well, we're not accountants. Then why are you asking for the information? Stuff was in there like, you must have a minimum 5 years experience. So tell me what happens after 4 years, 364 days, 23 hours and 59 minutes that suddenly imbues you with skills and powers that you haven't had before. Gone. You must have a minimum turnover of X. Why? 99.9% of what we buy, we only pay for when you've delivered it. So where's the risk? It's the same with the insurance. We use risk-based insurance now. So that if you're Amy, building our roads, maintaining our roads, you will have a level of insurance up here. If you're selling us carrots, it'll probably be a bit below that. So it's about trying to make my procurement team intelligent. What I keep telling them is, I cannot give you procurement by numbers. If there's a 1 in the box, it's yellow. If there's a 2 in the box, it's pink, like the old paint by numbers we had as children. What you're paid for in my procurement team is not for knowledge itself, because knowledge itself is worthless. It's about the application of that knowledge to do the best by the people of Staffordshire. That's what you're paid for. The application to achieve the Commissioner's desired outcomes. There you go, there's the tape measure. In our tender pack, there's a commitment statement which lists the Council's 9 key priorities. Number 1 being local economic prosperity. Number 2 being local youth employment. To tender, to put in a valid tender, you have to sign that commitment statement. Because let's face it, it's rather like a marriage or a relationship. If you both want separate things, it's never going to work. There has to be a commonality. So if you're not prepared to sign that commitment statement, and why wouldn't you, then don't bother tendering. We're a bit crafty in Staffordshire, and I shouldn't be saying this publicly, but hey-ho, in for a penny. What we do is, because EU law, which is often cited as an excuse from people in my position, oh, EU, what a crock. EU is a comfort blanket for people which encourages inaction. It's a pathetic, lame excuse for doing the right thing. And if anyone says that to you, in my position, push back, because it's rubbish. They won't be able to defend their position. As we're not allowed to score tenderers' responses regarding local labour because, whisper it, EU says you can't have local labour clauses. We don't have a local labour clause. But I think it's right and proper that I say to you, if you're tendering for this contract and you win it, what would be your mobilisation plans in the following areas? Number one being local employment. Now, it's for information only, but we will rely on that going forward. We're working with, I'm proud to say, Will Nixon and his team at PM Training, a local social enterprise, to create apprenticeships in our supply chain. That figure's out of date. I'm told by Will this morning it's 191 created so far in our supply chain by working with Will, by putting on supplier events where we hint ever so slightly what a great idea it would be for you if you were to employ local apprentices. And as recently as last week, one of the construction developments which we've just tendered, as a result of our gentle persuasion and silver tongues, they're going to employ 7 local lads and lasses on the scheme. Now, you might say, oh, whoopie-doo, 191. That's 191 local lads and lasses employed, possibly for the first time. In some cases, in the more deprived areas of the county, we've broken the chain of 3 generations in the same family never having worked, which is absolutely scandalous. And that's why I'm so passionate about this. I don't want the children in my family to leave school and there be nothing for them because I became bottom line obsessive about savings rather than the holistic view. As you know, I'm a West Midlands social value champion. I'm proud to be so, and no one had to put an arm on my back to do it. I want to do it. Adrian led the effort last year on doing the things I've just outlined to you with the Federation of Small Businesses Award for having the best small business-friendly procurement policy. And we've won SOPO awards around keeping it local, keeping it legal, local youth unemployment, and creating a sustainable economy for 3 years out of the last 4. Right, keeping it local, keeping it legal. I've mentioned the EU. Everyone will say, oh, no, the local agenda's out the window, it's all EU, it's got to be EU compliant. Often given as an excuse. You don't have to do anything. Just put an advert in OJU, you get what you get, you award it, job's a good one. Not. We've used a thing called lotting. So I'll give you some examples of that, or one example. We divided the county into 8 districts, because it is anyway, there are 8 districts in the county. And because local economic prosperity is important to us, and very important to the leader, we advertised, for example, our milk and bread contracts for the schools, fresh fruit and vegetables, meat for the schools. And what we said to people was, in the OJU advert, there is a delivery window every morning between 7:30 and 8:30. Now, if you want to keep a jet on standby at Munich Airport, that's absolutely fine, but highly unlikely. As a result, we've ended up with local providers for all of those products. And the added value with the milk is that some of the milk is sold to our provider from tenants on county farms. So we can tell a very compelling story of Staffordshire school children eating nothing but local produce in season. We don't quite have the climate for pineapples and bananas in Staffordshire yet, but we're working on it. Local meat, local eggs from free-range hens, and the most compelling story of all, the milk they drink is from Staffordshire cows grazed on Staffordshire grass. So not only do you have your sustainability in terms of carbon footprint and environmental things, but you have traceability as well. You know what your children are eating. This one's an interesting one. About 2 years ago, the council leader, Philip Atkins, made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And having a Sicilian mother, I know all about that. To go with him to an NFU conference in Stafford, where I was rounded on by a load of farmers and producers who quite rightly said, you don't buy anything from us, why not? And when we explained about the logistics, they said, look, we don't want to invest in infrastructure because A, it's the wrong time in the economy to be investing heavily, and B, what if I buy all this infrastructure and in 2 years' time, I don't have a contract? What do I do with it? So I went away, I was tasked by the leader, right, okay, go away and solve it. No pressure there then. And I had what they call euphemistically a light bulb moment. And I thought, why couldn't I act as a dating agency and introduce these growers and producers to our providers of those products? We did that, and after a number of successful trials, they now provide produce into our provider, who then supplies it directly to us. And that's thinking outside the box. That's trying to be creative. And as a result of that, our local producers and growers now have a ready market. And because we pay our provider, all our providers, within 10 days, they get paid quickly, and they've got all the massive cash flow advantages. And I'm sure I don't need to tell any of you here today how crucial cash flow is. It won't go. Right. We believe in doing it with our providers, not to them. That might sound quite refreshing to some of you, but we believe no one knows your marketplace better than you. We don't. Again, when I took over at Staffordshire, we used to tell people like Tarmac and Amy how to build roads. Do you not think they might know a thing or two about it? So now it's about outcomes. And what I say to the team, everything that we procure or commission, start with the desired outcome and work back. Don't assume that you know the best process. And it's not about just buying better, it's about doing better. Anyone can buy better, anyone can buy cheaper. That's not what the game is. All good stuff. Pat on the back, well done, Ian. However, more needs to be done. We need to change still. We need to ensure that everybody involved in the process understands the real difference between cost and price. Everybody gets hung up on the price, but the cost is more than the price. It's the holistic view I talked about earlier, and we need to make sure that that embeds all of our thinking. We need to believe and understand that social enterprise can help to change the marketplace. And in some of the markets now, they're new markets, in new areas that we're commissioning, the markets need developing, they need growing, because after all, competition is healthy, isn't it, as long as it's based on the right principles. Doing business differently can change the economic landscape. We've been slaves to tradition. We've been slaves to the way we've always done stuff. It's time to break free and say, right, okay, what if? Let's speak to social enterprises and say, okay, this is what we need to achieve. How would you do it? You know, let's not believe we have a monopoly on wisdom. I know I don't. My wife reminds me about it every day. I want in my team innovation and creativity as standard. Innovation should not be a bolt-on. Creativity should not be a bolt-on. It should be a standard. It should be, well, okay, how else could I do this? And not being afraid to ask. And I want my team to be brave, be bold, and have a proportionate attitude to risk. Risk is the four-letter word of local government. We manage it brilliantly because we put it all onto the provider. Instead of saying, what is the risk? So it isn't just what is the risk, what's the likelihood of that risk occurring, and if it did, what would we do? It's rather like when you drive a car and you think, oh my God, I might have a crash. Well, there's certain mitigations you can take against that. Don't text, don't eat. Yeah? Don't drive when you're drunk. If it's dark, put the lights on. If it's raining, put the windscreen wipers on. Get it regularly serviced. You might still have a crash. Hey-ho. Life is full of risk. It's about how you manage that risk. And by risk, I don't mean charge of the light brigade risk. Keep riding, lads, they're bound to run out of cannonballs shortly. But calculated risk with mitigating actions built in. The way ahead, as I see it, train our providers, because at the moment, we're expecting them to be overnight commercial experts. That won't happen. So we need not just to train them in our processes and what good looks like, but how to fill in a tender. And I don't think there's any problem in doing that. Train our commissioners to specify desired outcomes. Now, we have a lot of people in Staffordshire who wear the sheriff's badge that says commissioner, but when you say to them, great, what do you do? And they just say, well, I commission stuff. It's about saying, okay, can you clearly articulate to us and therefore to the marketplace what the desired outcome is? And I believe we've got to embed social value into all of our procurement. Again, social value is not a bolt-on or an add-on or a nice-to-have. It's essential to be embedded in all of our procurement. And listen to the marketplace. Nanny doesn't always know best. The marketplace always does. Listen to them and don't be afraid or too proud to change following their feedback. I'll leave you with this, another one of my mantras. If you always do what you've always done, then you'll always get what you've always got. Nothing will change. And clearly that cannot be an option going forward. Thank you for listening.